Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. Good to see some enthusiasm. We'll get started with the presentation and the session in just a minute, but we want to take a moment to do introductions for those of you who snuck in the room after we did so yesterday morning. You're going to have to be honest. I know a couple people. Sarah has a mic.
Hi, I'm Mark Abraham at Data Haven in New Haven.
Megan Goulding from LA.
Dan Brown with Children's Optimal Health in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Also, if you were here yesterday, you don't have to introduce yourself. Sorry. Just for the new people.
Camille Seabury from Data Haven. Just raise your hand.
Jesse Partridge from Boston Metropolitan Area Planning Council.
I'm Amy Confair from the Drexel Urban Health Collaborative in Philadelphia.
In this part of the room. Okay.
All the new people sat together.
Greg Sanders from Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago.
Denise Ross, an alum of the Data Center in New Orleans, now at New America, studying networks like NNIP.
Catherine Hillenbrand from Harvard.
Hi, Jake Cowan. I'm from Chicago, and I'm an alumni of Neighborhood Info DC and Data Driven Detroit.
Anyone else
didn't introduce themselves yesterday?
Great. All right. So.
Yep, sorry. Kevin Mickey with the Polis Center.
Oh, welcome. No.
And my shy colleague, Deb.
Well, welcome. All right. So we wanted to do this session about making the NNIP network work for you. So we wanted to be not just me talking to you, but more interactive to make sure we're getting your input and what the network should be tackling. So I'm going to do a short presentation to set the stage, give you a couple updates, and then we're going to break out into small groups, and you'll have some time to discuss. There will be an executive committee member in each of those groups and a person from the Urban Institute taking notes so that we can capture the information and talk about it at our next executive committee meeting next Wednesday. So it will be directly actionable. We have slides working today too, so we're off to a good start. The activities that we undertake as a network are all in support of these three goals. First and foremost is to build and strengthen the local capacity to use data for decision making and community building. This takes the form of both supporting current NNIP partners and working with new cities to develop this capacity. As a network, we also believe that the effective use of data can affect programs and policies, and that NNIP should seek to inform local and national policy. And finally, we want to build broad support across the country for the community information field and use of data for decision making. So in support of those goals, we take on a number of different activities, and we've kind of lumped them into these 5 different buckets. And each activity usually serves multiple goals at the same time. But we try to prioritize the decisions we're making about what activities the network and urban staff undertake based on the needs of the partners, the needs of the network, and needs from the field that we hear from you all and from others in our circle. And we do all of this in consultation with the executive committee. So the handout in the packet gives a little summary of the highlights over the last 6 to 9 months that we've accomplished this year. And I'm going to go through just a couple of those. And while you're thinking about it, we're going to ask you to select one of these 5 topics to participate in the discussion group after I'm finished. So just be keeping that in mind while I'm talking. NNIP HQ develops guides and other written resources based on the collective experiences of the network to build the capacity of the network, of our partners, and to sustain local data intermediaries. We just completed 3 guides as part of the technical assistance project work we did with the Office of Minority Health that D3 helped lead. Sarah Matarnahan from Urban was the lead author on the first two. In the business of a local data intermediary, we've taken some of the insights that you all have shared about your business practices and folded them together to reflect practices on pricing, scoping work, and sustainability. We've also created a how-to guide on conducting the business model canvas, which many of you have already done yourselves and hopefully continue to use as a tool. Rob Patingolo wrote up guidance on the extract, transform, and load process, or ETL. And that guide features case studies from 5 NNIP partners about their data management practices. And I've asked Rob to tweet out the link for that, which I emailed you earlier. So you can check out all those guides, which are in the partner-only section right now on the NNIP website. Following the pre-session we had last May on governance and data security for integrated data systems, Amanda Gold and I are preparing an annotated resource list on these topics around confidential data, and maybe reaching out to those of you who are interested in submitting your protocols, data sharing agreements, et cetera, so that we can incorporate those examples into the guide. NNIP helps convene partners both formally and informally to encourage sharing of expertise and peer learning. Much of this happens through meetings like this one, our semi-annual partners meetings and the regular idea showcases we have, one coming up in November. Just keep that on your calendars, anybody interested in presenting. In collaboration with Actionable Intelligence for Social Policy, we recently had a small meeting of technical staff from NNIP partners and organizations hosting integrated data systems to share practices on linking and data integration techniques. There has also been some recent interest in forming a technology committee that came out of one of the camp sessions in Baltimore. We've had a planning call on this topic, and Rob is going to lead an unconference session, I think, on this topic. And so if you want to get involved in that or have some input on what a possible technology committee might do, please attend and vote for that session. We have been drafting or planning several collections of stories that highlight the impact that you all are having in your local places, as well as the network in general, to inform specific audiences, to describe the value of local data intermediary services. And these stories have provide examples both for externally outside of the network and within the network. And we want to thank to everyone who's been helping us with answering our questions about those stories that we've written up over the last year. One way to do this is to submit your own story and apply for the G. Thomas Kingsley Impact Award, which the applications will be coming out in December. We've already posted several stories from last year's applicants and the winner, and more are on the way. And following on the panel we had last May in Baltimore on working with local governments, we're drafting a series of briefs and a framing paper that will explore how partners are working with local governments and get that out hopefully soon in the next few months. Cross-site projects are ones that we work on together, usually involving 3 to 8 sites. We explore different themes or research questions and different cities and their contexts. The projects generate new local policy and programmatic responses, offer insights to urban communities across the country, and suggest lessons for national audiences. And they really show the importance of using data in local decision-making. Each one of these has a project page on the NNIP website that you can check out with the descriptions and the associated publications for those. And you can always reach out to anyone in the urban staff for more details on those projects. In the past 6 months, we've completed the cross-site work on training with funding from Microsoft that Kathy spoke a bit about yesterday. And to close out the project, we had several partners who blogged on the training topic, so their blogs are also linked to on the training project page. And the last 2 projects on this slide are going to run through the middle of next year, turning the corner in the Civic Tech and Data Collaborative, and you can expect to see more materials in the spring and summer as we report out on those findings and projects. And the final set of activities is conducting national outreach. We take on work to engage with other national organizations like the Sunlight Foundation or Living Cities, and both formally going to their meetings and informally through conversations with staff. And when we want to share lessons both from our partners outwards and bring in what we're learning from the national networks into the network. This would include national networks that have local affiliates like LISC, United Way, Code for America, as well as types of organizations that are present in most regions, like metropolitan planning organizations. And we launched our first public newsletter, a long time coming, an NNIP update. Hopefully all of you are on it, with about 3,500 subscribers to really share stories both from the network activity level, but also to get individual stories about partners out there to the broader national audience. And through this activity, we are trying to increase the visibility of NNIP, our partner organizations, and the work you all do to use data for community improvement at meetings of other national organizations like the All-In Network for Community Health and Metro Lab Network. So that's all I'm going to do on the presentation, and we wanted to break out, get the conversation started, make sure everybody's awake on this Thursday morning. So we're going to break everyone into 5 groups, and you can choose whatever group you want. You're not going to be assigned based on where you happen to sit down this morning. So you will have to get up if you want a different group. And as I said, there's a member of the executive committee with each group. We do have a handout on the table. Look for that. It's got both the groups listed. We've drafted a series of questions for each group that are specific to each group. And in your packet, there's some general questions as well. And we want to spend about 20 minutes brainstorming ideas and discussing priorities. And then we're all going to come back together at that time and do a little report out and try to have you share so other people not in your group can hear. So we did want to send the largest group out of the room to Renaissance Place. So I need a show of hands, probably how many are interested in each group. If you want to talk about developing guidance with Noah and Olivia, can you raise your hand? Got a handful there. All right. Facilitating peer support and dialogue with Bob and Rob. Okay, a couple more. Sharing stories of impact with April and Sarah. That one's got a few. Those two are about the same, I think. Developing cross-site projects with Laura and myself. A little bigger, that one. This is getting hard. All right, national outreach, and particularly if national folks who are here might be helpful for you to attend that as well. Okay, it looks like cross-site projects was the largest of that group, so Laura and I will take that group just around the corner to Renaissance Place. And based on, where do I have Noah over here? So we'll go with the guides and just try to pull your chairs around Noah in that area. The guides will be over here. National outreach, do we want to have it go up front here, Mark, with this table? Peer support, maybe right where Bob's sitting, that's good. Bob's right back, raise your hand, Bob. Yeah, there we go. And stories of impact, maybe up where Louise is sitting on that table, centering over there, April. All right, does everybody know where they want to go? We will reconvene about 10:40-ish. We'll have somebody run around and tell you that to move at that point. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I made my group break up, so seems only fair. I know, we were tight. If we can locate the mics, you can stay where you are at the moment, because we're just going to try to do some quick report out before the next session. And you can continue these conversations during camp if they're going well. All right. Kathy looks very prepared with the microphone standing there. You can hand it to someone else, but let's start over here with the outreach table. We have got some questions. We want to have someone from each group share 1 or 2 ideas about priority areas, and then we can have some discussion. If you didn't get to attend one of the groups you would have also liked to attend, to share your ideas and get those in there as well.
And we're only supposed to be given 2 examples.
Wow, we've got pages of ideas.
We're only supposed to give 1 or 2, because that's...
Yes, 1 or 2.
I think we got some really good examples, and one action item was to reach out to our Friends of NNIP national list to ask about conferences we should be at, who should be invited to the meeting, like get their ideas open source our friends list so that they see who's coming. And the other piece was about tying together networks. Denise has been looking at other networks, so making sure like everyone in the homeless cross-site network around the country knows that they have an NNIP partner, and doing those more introductions.
Great.
Among many, many other topics, and these are not sticky flip charts, we learned.
Yeah, I don't think we have any blue tape. Okay, Stories group. Someone at Stories want to give us some ideas? Priority topics?
Great. So yeah, we had a good conversation about stories, and I think that the need to make it a little bit more clear what we hope to get out of stories, both from a telling and tooting our own horn a bit so we can get interest from outsiders, and also for learning. A lot of great policy areas in this group that we could potentially dive into for stories. So jobs and economic clusters, health and equity, education, including universal pre-K, affordable housing, on the political side, gerrymandering, housing, and equity again. And then a couple more specific ideas like aggregating census polls and how different clients are using those resources that we all put out through web.
Great. Bob, peer support group. Doesn't have to be Bob, but.
Yeah, I didn't really put much thinking into recruiting somebody, but I should have. So we talked about things like a tech committee, and one of the ideas that came up was to replicate the New Haven presentation, where it was kind of a skill share showing the ACS and R, was that right? And putting the notes out for everybody to grab. And so doing those on a regular basis, similar format, would allow people from our tech-related folks to actually have a way to convene and communicate. The second idea related to that would be to have maybe one meeting that had a little bit more tech and research topic focus, and the second meeting could be project management and organizational development focus, so that the tech folks, if they would come, would feel like there's enough there to make it worth their while. And then we also talked a little bit about pre-session ideas. There was general sense that they were really valuable. And some of the topics I think that people here in this group wanted to address would be fundraising strategies and plans, implementing new technologies, dealing with turf wars, addressing branding and communications issues. And I think that's all we got. Did I miss anything, table? So.
The guides group.
So we did a quick brainstorm listing out all different potential ideas where people might like to see guides, and then we took a completely scientific poll of which ones people might prioritize in terms of importance or relevance to their work. So the ones that floated to the top there were around data data and network security, communicating delay audiences, and then also establishing essentially sort of like a partner matrix or tagging system in the website that would help partners better identify where areas of expertise are, either from like topic areas or skill sets or both. And then the other element that we kind of talked about a lot that we thought was just important was just kind of like rethinking or improving kind of how to find guides on the website, and particularly like a catalog of all the resources that are available, especially for people who might not be as familiar with the NNIP network in general. So
Findability is, yeah. Okay, the cross-site project.
Can we just mention that there are tags on the website? We never use them. So it's a push. It's from, I'm telling the staff, we need to just send a note out to remind people
Yes,
that they could use
on
those.
your bio for your staff profile on the website, you can select your own expertise tags and skill-based and topic tags, just FYI. Some people have used them.
But we don't use them regularly, and they're hidden.
We did cross-site projects. I can just share a few ideas. We probably could have been talking for a long time, more than the 20 minutes we had. We talked about housing instability and evictions. Thank you, Ryan, for pointing us that direction. And there's some good work going on in North Carolina to both understand not just the actual court evictions, but what might lead up to those evictions and where we can find different data sources to triangulate some of the naturally affordable housing and maintaining that stock. We also talked about 500 cities data and how we could do a project around figuring out how to use that the best way for what it is, and ground truthing some of the information in different cities to see what it looks like. Any others, Laura?
Alternative ways of collecting data if residents are telling you that the data you have is not accurate or
Yeah.
disaggregated.
Yeah, when the data isn't doing the job, what can we do? Are there some sort of more standard alternative approaches that we could be developing as a network together to accommodate those situations? Particularly trying to break out groups for racial, ethnic, where small populations exist, and you really want to reflect the needs of those communities, but there isn't really data out there. So those are the overviews. We'd like to open it up for general comments, feedback. If you wanted to comment on another group, like Ryan did when I was out on my way out to the group on guides, and you really had a good idea, or on cross-site projects, and you have a good idea you want to make sure is heard, but weren't able to participate in that conversation. Kathy has a microphone, and I think Sarah.
We ended up coming up with some ideas that I think are more relevant to the guidance group around collaboration, local influence, so telling stories and writing guidance on how partners have been locally influential. And then I think the tech around working with AC, there's sort of a tech side and a guidance side to working with ACS data, that maybe both the guidance and the working committee, so.
Others? Come on, people. I know you do all of these things.
Tell us what to do, so you should.
Nobody? Katie. Thank you, Katie.
This is just a thought about something we might have added to the potential cross sites, and it gets at, I think, the undercount. So maybe something collectively about hard to count, particularly with the census coming up. So
Yes.
sort of integrating the discussion that's coming about a role to play, but I think maybe something cross-site on hard to count.
Yes.
In the census.
People are very interested in that topic. Others?
Yeah, just a really quick note too about not exactly cross-site project, but also a little bit around advocacy maybe for nationwide work. Thinking of how to advance terms of use for data sets that we might use that don't really have clear terms of use yet. So one of them that I think some of us work on is stuff we scrape from the web, from Craigslist, places like that, that have ambiguous terms maybe, but you could maybe advance maybe specific things, research purposes only or something. What are the terms by which partners or people doing this kind of work can use that data without any commercial use? Just something to clarify. So I think if a group like this weighed in on it too, somebody like Craigslist, it would be influential possibly, and maybe be better than all of us trying to do that and it not getting, or being shut down quietly at some point.
Yeah, and working on our own terms of use, right? Isn't that one of Kathy's wish list items?
Yes, I think thinking about being clear about licensing or attribution or Creative Commons or whatever, I think many partners are haven't thought that far, and so learning more about what that means and who's doing what around the network that way, I think would be really helpful.
Others?
I'll just say if there's any particular, like either one of these bigger topics or any particular one, there's still time to put camp ideas out there for today and tomorrow.
Yep, and if one of the camp sessions doesn't work, but you want to have a small side conversation, that works too. That's part of camp. But also feel free to email us with your ideas or ask for a phone call. We'd love to hear from you all. That's the beauty of the network, that we can harness all the smart thoughts from all of you and not just have to come up with them on our own. So we really appreciate your active participation in the network and in this session. And we will move on to the next session on times of crisis in cities and using data.
Jay and Denise and Jake, we'll do a little transition.
Does this start off with
We know we're running a few minutes